I am going to spend very little time in the layer drop-down palette because I do not want to waste your time. There are far better ways to get to, I would say, 95% of these options. And the biggest thing, the biggest purpose that this drop-down serves isn't doing things in these drop-downs, isn't actually going to one of these a billion different options, like an intimidating amount of options. The reason this exists is if you want to assign a keyboard shortcut to anything, or nearly anything with layers, this is the place to do it. Just being aware that you can go into Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and then go into this thing for layers and have a button to do it if you need to do something like 50 times in a row or some such. So I'm going to go through these, but keep in mind that you will rarely, very rarely use the layer dropdown. But it's good to have these options here, so there's a way to assign everything a keyboard shortcut. So let me show you how ridiculous of a dropdown the layer palette is. And you'll notice I have kind of an absurd file set up just so I can have all sorts of different layers. Yay! All right, new layer. Are you kidding me? No, I'm just going to click on this button down here, or I'm going to hit Command-Shift-N because I'm better than doing a dropdown inside of a dropdown. That's insane. Layer from background. What does that even mean? Are we going to, well, here, I'm going to click it, and you know what it's going to do? It's going to turn this into a layer 0. Or I could just double click it right here because going to a drop-down palette for that is insane. Group, well, I need to have multiple things selected for this to work. I could go up here, I could go to new group, and that will just create a empty folder right here. Or I could go here and I could hit Command G. Hey, I'm going to group them. Or I could click these right here, and I could just hit the little group icon. Yeah, I'm not going to this dropdown. This dropdown is ridiculous. Group from layers, yeah, take the selected layers and turn them into a group. I just showed you a better way to do this. This whole layer section is just going to be me seemingly ranting about being upset at a dropdown about more features. I don't know how I feel about that. Layer via copy. Yeah, I'm just going to hit Command J, and that duplicates something. So let me make that clear. If I hit Command J, I now have another layer. We've already learned this. I could do it by going layer via copy, but that's really silly. This isn't, but okay, so here's an example. I'm going to hit Command J. I'm going to bring it to the top of the layer stacking order. Look how cool that looks. Yes, it's a lazy selection. Please don't make fun of me for it. You know I can do a better one. I didn't feel like wasting the time. I didn't feel like spending those extra 20 seconds. Layer via cut. So this takes whatever's in the active region, and then rather than copying it, it cuts it. And what's interesting about that to me is I actually didn't know the keyboard shortcut for that. I didn't know if you went into layer, new layer from cut, I could do Command Shift J. So I just learned something new. And you learned it with me, you scamp. All right, copy CSS. Let's say that you have a vector thing such as this, and you want to copy the CSS of this vector. I'm gonna delete the results thing of this because I've done this before. So I'm gonna click this layer right here. I'm gonna go into layer, copy CSS. I'm pretty sure this is the only place to get to it, so this is a reasonable thing. I'm just gonna create a text box. I'm going to paste it in. I'm gonna hit enter. I'm gonna move it over. I am going to hit enter. I'm going to find the layer, and oh my God, my layers are not even remotely organized. I don't claim for them to be. And basically that allows you to just copy the CSS of an individual layer. If that's your thing, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Duplicate layer. Again, we already learned Command J. Why is there a thing up here? Yeah, sure, we're going to duplicate this layer, or I could just copy and paste it, or I could just drag it right here. I'm not doing that from a and why does it exist here and it also exists here? It's silly. I understand that there's a difference. You have an active region, this only copies this, and this one copies the entire layer, but still, there's no reason to have this in a dropdown. These are all things that you should be hiding when you go into Edit, Menus, Hide, because there's no reason for this giant menu. Delete layer, delete hidden layers. Hidden layers are all of the things with the eyes turned off. So, you know, if I went into delete layer, delete hidden layer, I could do it. Or I could just delete those hidden layers one by one. It's kind of a cool script. You'll notice that that's actually identical to the script, delete all empty. No, it's different. One thing's eyes turns off, one thing there being nothing in the layers, but they're different. They're different. All right, rename layer. I could do it up here, or I could double click the layer right here and do it where it's really intuitive as opposed to being this absurd drop down. Layer styles, I could again do it here, or I could double click the layer and get to it that way. Again, it's ridiculous. Smart filter. So let me go to, so in order to do a smart filter, let's say that you have, let's say that you have a smart object and you applied a filter to it, Gaussian blur. Looks fantastic. Here we go. Can we even see this? No, I duplicated the layer. Anyway, here we go. This thing in front. I can turn this on and off. If I have a smart object, I can turn it on and off, and I can turn specifically any of the filters off because it's a smart object, so it does cool things like this. I can get to smart filters in here. Disable smart filters, delete filter mask, disable filter mask, clear smart filters. Good God, why are we doing this in a drop-down? I just showed you how you can do all of it down here. So this drop-down is truly useless. Why would I do it that way? That's so convoluted and confusing. Yes, I get Photoshop has a lot of options. Do we need to list them all in one place? New fill layer. Yeah, we could do a solid color gradient pattern here, or we could do it where we've been doing it the entire time, inside of the layers palette where you would expect it to be. We've learned about these, and it's the same thing with new adjustment layer. Just do it inside of the layers palette. It's way cooler there. You'll be way cooler. Layer content option is something that I didn't know what it did, because what it does is absurd. If you have a pattern, what is it? It's a pattern, fill, or solid color or gradient layer, then instead of double clicking on this to change it, you know how you might think to do, you can also go into the layer drop down to the layer content options, and that will do the same thing as double clicking this. Who is getting to it that way? The only reason this is good is so I could assign a keyboard shortcut to it, which I couldn't do from this double click right there. So I get it, but you know, it's weird. It's weird. Why is this all in a rant tone? I don't know. I'm not really angry. I just think this will be more entertaining because good God, this drop down is boring. Okay, layer mask. Let me go to something that has a layer mask on it. Let's just put this at normal. Okay, great. Yay, we have a layer mask of some sort. So here we go. It's just this layer right here. You can see it. It's a big old keyboard, typewriter. That's the word. These things. So let's actually, I'm going to solo it out so we just have a single image. This is kind of a confusing thing. So let's say we just have this and let's make it a normal layer. Yay, there we go. If we have a selection, one way to go about creating a layer mask is by going to it and pressing reveal all, and then we have a layer mask. Or we could just hit this right here. Same thing, layer mask, hide all. Or we could just do alt click for this right here. I mean, it's really crazy to me that this exists. So reveal selection, hide selection from transparency. So yeah, if you have like a layer and there's some transparency on it, it'll make it from the transparency. Please just play around with this. Delete layer here. So if we go to an image that has a layer mask, which is going to be this one. So here we go. Layer mask. Reveal selection. Great. Such a weird way to make a mask. So convoluted. We can do things like delete the layer mask, apply the layer mask, disable the layer mask, unlink the layer mask, which again, we've learned other things for, like hitting shift on this, hitting alt on this will reveal it. Unlinking can do this. It's just going to it through the drop down. Like, it feels weird to me. It feels weird. Vector masks, just everything that we just said for layer masks, but for a vector mask. Same thing. Create clipping masks. So this is the thing where you're hitting alt. Those are called clipping masks. So la-di-da, if I have this and I have this will only show up over the other thing. It's a clipping mask. Don't go to it this way. That's a silly way. Hit Command-Alt-G. Command-Alt, yeah. G, or just do the alt thing that I've shown you. I'm going to keep going, but I got to be honest. I'm getting to a point where I am bored with the layer dropdown because this is the most boring dropdown. I'm gonna do this rapid fire because there are so many more things and they all don't matter. Smart object. You can convert a layer into a smart object, or you can do that through clicking. You can do it that way. And then there's all sorts of things. Just play with them yourself. I'm gonna actually go into this one a little bit more because this is something that in Photoshop CC, with the introduction of linked layers, there is some things to note inside of this smart objects dropdown that's a little bit confusing. So I'm going to create a, you know what, we'll just do it within this super confusing giant file that I've made of terribleness. So if you have a smart object, you want to convert, if you have a layer and you want to convert it to a smart object, there, you can see this is now a smart object. Yay for smart objects. We know what those are. I'm not going to cover that. So reveal in Finder is if it's a linked layer. So if you want to convert it to linked, that's located down here. My God, that's a weird way to do it. And then you would save it as Photoshop CC, menu, project images, layer 1, save. I think I'm getting punchy. I don't know what's going on. So now it's a linked thing. And so, of course, the linked layer options are located inside of Layer Smart Object because this is the worst drop-down ever. And now you can do things like edit content, replace content, which you can also get. Well, you can do edit content by double-clicking this right here, and that will also accomplish that, this little icon right here. Smart Objects reveal in Finder, so this will reveal a linked layer in the Finder. Embed linked, that turns a linked layer into a smart object. Does that make sense? So instead of it linking out, it's just still embedded within the single Photoshop document. You can embed all of the linked things, and this makes it so everything's in one place. Another thing that you can do is collect all the files. I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to get into that. It's boring, and I think I've covered it somewhere else. There's so much content here. Who knows? Stack mode. Okay, so this is something. If you create oh my God, this is such a ridiculous tip. Load files into Stack. So this is the tip where if you have multiple images of like a tourist site and there's all these tourists and you want to get it without the tourists, then you can like bring them in, stack them on top of each other if you took the photos on a tripod and then set it on median. So if you set it on median or mean and realize that you want to change it to median, you go into layer stack mode, and you can change it here. I would show you an example of this, but good God, it is such a limited use case, and I already showed you like the other thing elsewhere that I'm not going to go through it again because that is crazy. That's crazy. Like seriously, just insane to do that level of detail right there. And rasterize is a perfectly wonderful option for turning any linked layer or any smart object into just a normal layer. Or you can just right click on the layer and accomplish the same thing. Video layer, you know what? Video is its own thing. We'll get into video in other places, or we won't get into video because it's beyond the scope of this class, but video is its own thing. And then rasterize, this is just turning a layer into a normal layer. They don't need to have all these options. It just applies to the layer that you're on top of. Rasterize, it's just rasterize. It's just rasterize. New layer based on slice. I'm not getting into slicing because now that there's all of the generate and the putting .jpeg and .png at the end of layers, you don't need to worry about slices, which is such a delight. Maybe some people are still working on slices. I guarantee you nobody should be. Group layers, really we need a drop down for this. Command G, ungroup layers. Command Shift G, hide layer. So hide layer, this is kind of cool. Turning the eye icon on and off is just Command comma. I didn't know that keyboard shortcut before going through all of these. I know it now. How cool. Arrange. Here's some great keyboard shortcuts to learn. Let's say that you have all of these nifty layers on and you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. All sorts of Photoshop things. I'm going to set this to overlay because why not? I'm going to, I don't know. I'm just going to set this right here. Yay, all sorts of things are happening. Why not? Look at this Photoshop doc. Let's say that I want to bring the background right here all the way to the top. I could do Command Shift square bracket. And if you forget that, if you go into layer, arrange, bring to front, bring to forward, send backwards, send to back. There are all these keyboard shortcuts right here. You can select a group of layers, and if for some reason you want to reverse them, there is the ability to do that. I will say this is the only place that I know of to reverse layers. It's possible a lot of these things are also located up here. A lot of the things are located, like it's an identical list of new group from layers, collapse all groups, lock layers, convert to smart object. Like a lot of these things are similar in that button right there and this button right here, but you get it. Align, really? There's a line here. Can't we just go to the Move tool and do things in the option bar? Distribute, again, same thing as in the Move tool option bar. Lock layer, this is a way to lock all of the layers, like put the little lock sign on them. Link layers, select linked layers. Merge layers, merge visible, flatten image. We know what all of those means. We've covered layers already. I'm not going to get into that. And then all that matting is saying is sometimes when you make a select, sometimes here, let's do something that is a normal layer. There we go right there. Sometimes when you make a lousy selection, there's this matting that's on it. So if it's a mask where you do like this really loose selection of the white, if you're doing things with a mask and if you're using Refine Edge, you're not going to need to get into matting. This is kind of a legacy feature. So I don't even want to get into it. So basically what I'm trying to say is I don't want to get into the layer dropdown because the fact that it exists is only to teach you keyboard shortcuts. And don't think about it beyond that, except for a few little things inside of Smart Object with linked layers where there's some actually pretty cool things right there. And no, that's all somewhere. Yeah, that's really the big thing right there. This is the cool thing. Everything else, totally useless. Let's move on to type.